Hi everyone, it's Alexis with Project Management Made Simple. In this video, I'm going to answer the question, what is scope creep and what are the effects of it? So scope creep refers to the changes in a project scope that happen in an uncontrolled manner. Now there's some factors that are attributed to this, mainly looking at the change control process or change management process. I'm going to use that interchangeably here. And so ideally what we want to have for any project is a change management process that speaks to how changes will be handled on a project. Now, if we're having scope creep, it could be one of two things. Either we don't have a change management process defined, and so changes just come in left and right. Maybe they go straight to, if we're working on a software development project, maybe our customers go straight to our developers and tell them what changes that they want without talking to a product owner or a project manager or whoever is supposed to be filtering those changes. Or it could be that we do have a change management process and it's been defined, but either it's not well understood or it's not followed. If we have team members coming in and out of our team, which happens with projects that tend to go on for long stints of time, well, then ensuring that the team has an understanding of what the change management process is and also reinforcing that, right? Even if the change management process has been established, it could be well known by the team. If they find that their changes are not being accommodated or they're not finding the value of having a change management process, then it's inevitable that they are going to circumvent this. And this scope creep could come from both sides of the equation, where you have customers who like I said, could be talking directly to developers saying, hey, can you just do this one other thing? You know, actually, I want to make this little change here. And all of those little things end up being, more than just little things when they're accumulated together. Or it could be from your project team who is saying, even though the customer didn't ask for this, we want to add this because we feel like this would be helpful to them in the future. In both cases, in both scenarios, it's important that those changes that are being suggested go through a change management process. And I think sometimes when people hear the word process, they can be kind of allergic to it and think that it means that you want to constrain things down, want to make sure that and have more of a sense of control. And to some degree it is, right? Any process is put in place to allow visibility into what the changes are, to allow visibility into or to allow for more control over that process by having visibility into the various activities. And so the goal of a change management process is to protect the project and the project team and the customer from taking on too much work and then not being able to deliver on the plan that we have set forth. Whether you're using the Waterfall or Agile methodology, in either case, we have plans. Now, we know with Waterfall projects, we tend to spend a lot more time or have one phase of planning, whereas Agile, specifically in Agile Scrum, we still do a lot of planning. We actually do more planning than we do in the Waterfall methodology. That's an entirely different video. But just to illustrate, at the end of the day, regardless of what methodology you're using, regardless of what industry you're in, you're going to have a plan before you start the work. And so it's important that you have a way to filter any of those changes that will inevitably come in. In particular with knowledge work projects, change is going to happen. We're not going to know everything up front. And so our customers, our users are going to request, if we're working in software development, are going to request different features that they may not have even realized that they could request until later on. And so having a change management process that enables the team to, yes, take in changes that make sense, but then also filter out those changes that don't make sense is going to be key to a project's successful delivery. So there's a couple of effects that we will see on a project as a result of scope creep. The first one is going to be inflated scope. If we're working on any project, we have a set idea of what the requirements are going to be. And so if we then add on requirements without swapping some requirements out, we're going to have inflated scope. And this is going to result in other things like constantly shifting priorities. Now, I will say the caveat here is that when we're working in the Agile world, we really actually think of change. We plan change into the working methodology, right? Agile is really about delivering consistent value and delivering what is most pertinent to the customer at that time. So it's a little bit different than when we think of Waterfall, where we want to have our priorities set forth at the very beginning. In Agile, your priorities can constantly shift. But even in Agile, specifically if we're using Agile Scrum, within the sprint itself, we do not want to have priorities shifting around, the product owner bringing various things into the sprint and shifting things out. As a general rule of thumb, it's not a hard rule, but as a general rule of thumb, we don't want that to happen, because then the team loses cadence, they lose velocity, their attention is everywhere, and it's hard for them to focus on what is actually going to be the most valuable thing for their customer, for their user, if they're having these constantly shifting priorities. And when we have scope creep, it's inevitably going to result in shifting priorities, because naturally a customer's added another requirement. They're going to want to follow up and know, where is the status of that requirement? Is this something that has now become more important than everything else? If it has, then it's going to shift the focus of the team to that one thing. Now, again, this could be, depending on how this is handled, again, going back to that change management process, it could be no problem. But if we're finding that we have a team who has constantly shifting priorities, are not able to focus, and it's as a result of scope creep, then we want to take a look at our change management process. So the other ways that we're going to see, or that we can see, scope creep affect our project is going to be an increase in the project's timeline, decrease in the quality of the project, and then potentially an increase in the project's budget. Now, really all three of these work hand in hand with each other. This goes back to our triple constraint. I have a video dedicated to that I will have linked below. So if we're thinking of an increase in scope, we're thinking of, putting it in layman's terms, thinking of an increase in requirements. And so with that, then we have our team who already has a plan that they're working towards. They are now going to have to accommodate for these additional requirements, which means additional work for them to do. And so if they already have a plan of what they're working on, we have a certain schedule, that schedule is going to be impacted now that there's more work to do. If the customer wants to keep to that same schedule, we could try adding more resources to the project. That may not necessarily be the best idea, but if we add more resources to the project, inevitably it's going to cost more. If we have our team work overtime, it's going to cost more. And what happens when teams are working overtime for extended amounts of time? It's not sustainable, and it causes a decrease in the team's quality, in the quality of their deliverables, right? So we can see an impact to all of these three elements of the budget, of the quality of the work, of the project's timeline when we have scope creep. And we can see just how important it is to have a change management process that facilitates an understanding of how these changes that are being proposed will impact our entire project. So the final effect that scope creep will have on a project is actually not on the project, but on the customer. It results in a frustrated customer. I just mentioned how scope creep can likely affect your quality, your schedule, and your budget. And your customer is not going to be happy if they are having to pay more, if they're having to wait longer, and if they're not getting the quality that they expected when they first started this project with you and with the project team. So it's really important that you as the project manager, or perhaps even the product owner, if we're talking about the Agile Scrum world, whoever is playing that customer-facing role, sets clear expectations with your customers that if they are bringing changes to the team, having that transparent conversation to say how those changes are going to impact the various elements of the project is going to be very important to the project's success, but also important to maintaining a trusting relationship with your customer. If your customer knows that you're going to be honest with them about if they have a new feature, and you're not just going to try to take that and run with it and figure it out later, if they know that you're going to be upfront with them and do your due diligence, then that is going to enhance your relationship with them, increase the trust that you have with them, and ultimately, hopefully, have more projects with them in the future. This was a video answering the question, what is scope creep and the effects of it? In my next video, I will answer the question, how do you address scope creep? If you found this video helpful, please do give it a thumbs up, and I will talk to you in the next video.